episode of the Social Zee Franchise Happy Hour. I'm Calvin as usual. We are in the dead heat of summer here in Destin, Florida. I was just telling Ian it is 100 and plus degrees. It feels even hotter, and I'm hoping to go jump in the water later. But super excited to take a few minutes to talk to our next guest, Mr. N. Foster, coming from the other side of the country and probably a not so hot San Diego, California. N, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
Good. Thanks for having me, Calvin. I'm good.
So, N, to kick us off, what we'd ask you to do is tell us what has been your biggest win celebration that you've had most recently in your business, and what are you doing to do personal development? Are you reading, working out? Like, where are you spending your time on N right now?
So, frankly, my biggest win has been just surviving COVID as a business. You know, the restaurant industry, bar industry, and the West Coast certainly was pretty much completely shut down for, like, on and off, but mainly shut down for a full year and a half at least. And so, you know, coming out of it and seeing all our clients, or almost all our clients, come back was very, very satisfying. You know, I don't think we're, at least on the West Coast, we're not quite back to where we were before, but the industry's coming back and they're calling us, which is gratifying, and I'm thankful for it. Personally, the one big thing that I've done post-COVID is I've joined, I don't know if you've heard of Sandler Sales Coaching, their program. I work with the office here in San Diego, and you know, I thought I was a really good salesperson pre-COVID before I joined Sandler. And kind of what I learned was that, you know, I just wasn't scared to go and talk to people, and that's 90% of the battle, but I really wasn't technically very good, and I'm getting much, much better, particularly at not trying to lead somebody to a sale, but letting them figure that out on their own, whether or not we're a good fit, and kind of being more relaxed about that, which makes the person you're talking to and me feel better. So that's the big personal development thing.
Sure. And with Sandler Sales, what does that look like? And what do you? I mean, is that a program that takes a certain amount of time, or like what's the development process there?
Yeah. So I guess first I'll just say we had a franchisee in our system who's all of a sudden started doubling his business, and I got talking to him like, "What are you doing different?" He said, "Well, I joined this program, and it made him less afraid to make sales calls and better at it." And so what the program, at least the office I'm working at here in San Diego, is that it's a bi-weekly hour-and-a-half Zoom call where you learn about different sales principles and get to practice them and really get a pretty deep understanding of, you know, how not to be a salesperson. Actually, it's funny because most salespeople are a turnoff, and so we go the opposite way. So that's really helped me. Helped me.
Awesome. Well, Ian, we want to dive into your businesses and what you do. You know, it's not often we get to talk to someone who's been doing something for 30 years anymore, right? Like you're kind of a unicorn probably in that sense. But you know, before we dive into that, tell us a little bit about, you know, your background. Obviously, you're in San Diego now. Did you grow up in Vancouver? I know you went to school there.
I did. I grew up in Vancouver, Canada, and joined a company called McCain Foods out of college, being a sales rep. And I kept getting moved and promoted. I ended up in Toronto. I had a great job, making a lot of money, basically taking people out for lunch. And I stumbled across when I was just a regular rep, I got to know these two brothers in Toronto. They owned a little pub. And I got to know them pretty well. So I was early for a meeting with Arby's one day, and I happened to walk in because I had an hour to kill to say hi to them. And they were weighing bottles, you know, liquor bottles on a scale. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? Up for the service, which is the company I'm with now, and they made so much money that they bought a franchise in a business, and I was kind of very intrigued by that. So, you know, within a month, I quit my great job and moved back to Vancouver. Moved into my parents' basement. Went from driving a brand new car every 2 years to driving a $90 car that went on fire one time. It was crazy, and really totally failed, Calvin, to be honest with you, for the first 3 months. But over time, I started to figure it out, and it got to the point where I had a lot of really good clients and an opportunity open to buy a franchise down in San Diego. So that's where I am now, and I'm really happy I did all that. Not that there weren't bumps along the way.
Yeah. Sure. So obviously, this is early 1990s in, different world back then. You know, what was the evolution from, being a young guy, probably making more money than your peers to say, hey, this is what I'm going to go do next. And obviously you saw an opportunity, but, what were the things you did early on that took you out of that 3 month of, oh crap, what did I do to, obviously having a great career that's spanned decades. Like, talk to us a little bit about the
Yeah, so
journey, I
I
guess.
guess the first thing is I probably wouldn't have jumped into this business because at the time it was unproven. If I was married and had a mortgage, but I was young enough that it was worth the risk. Um, Now, it probably helps your viewers to understand that we help bar and restaurant owners eliminate losses from overpouring and theft, which happen in every bar. So I'd seen the kind of money that we can make our clients we had in Toronto, that the founder had landed. So I knew the concept was the right concept, but I was just trying way too hard to get clients. And I was going about it the wrong way. And I remember in particular, I started just around Christmas. And January, February, March, all the way to my birthday in early April, I was out 8, 9 hours a day making sales calls and really not getting any clients. And not only that, Calvin, I was giving it away. I was telling people, look, try it for a month for free and see what you think. And they still said no. I was like, oh my God.
Sure.
And so I remember on my birthday looking in the mirror and thinking, do I quit this and go back to corporate world and, chalk it up as an adventure? And I didn't want to give up that easy. So I kind of tore apart everything I was doing, realized 2 or 3 small things I was doing wrong that ended up having, tremendous impact. And slowly but surely, that started to pay off. So it was, I think it really just boils down to perseverance, quite honestly, and not getting stuck doing the same thing over and over again forever. I'm a little embarrassed it took me 3 months, but better than 3 years.
Sure, sure. So, so you were struggling on the sales side. Obviously, you had to change your approach. What were probably the, I don't know, in those first 5 years, let's say, what were the things that you felt like you learned the most and really changed about maybe who you are or how you did things that allowed you, I mean, looking at your career again, been doing this 3 decades, you've now sold over 80 franchise
Yeah.
territories. And again, I would assume you're probably the guy in this space, right? And so, what were the things, if looking back, if you could tell in 1991, hey, do this quicker, right? Like, what would be those
That's a
things?
good question. That's a really good question. I guess one thing that I would tell myself back then was that taking a risk is a good idea. Um, I'm happy I did that. I'm happy I have my own business. The things I would say that maybe I could have learned faster, well, that's really hard to think of that in that way. Um, you know, I think it's just don't try so hard to convince people to sign up as clients. Just let it come to you more. I mean, you're still going to make the effort, but don't be so pushy is the wrong word. I don't think I'm a pushy personality, but certainly you've heard the saying, always be closing. I was always trying to close, and that's really not the way to do it.
Mhm.
I realized that if somebody was skeptical, that I was better off saying, no problem. Why don't I drop by again in 3 or 4 months and say hello? You never know when things change, and they could sense that confidence. And when you showed up again in three or
Sure.
4 months, they thought, okay, I've never heard of this business before, or even what these guys do, but this guy's come back again and again over the course of a year and a half, so it's got to be kind of legit. Uh, and the other thing I learned, I think pretty quickly that's super important is that having very, very happy clients that you've made a lot of money for is really a shortcut to success because they're going to refer you and introduce you to other
Sure.
business owners. Um, the one thing I'm still not very good at that I wish I'd done much better at a long time ago, and maybe it's not too late, is I'm not really good at networking. And I've seen some of my colleagues, join restaurant associations and go to the meetings and get in a group of restaurateurs, and that's something I'm not maybe entirely comfortable with. That would have served me well if I'd done that.
Sure. Sure. You've been doing this again a long time here,
Well, you're
and
making me sound old,
just
Colin.
in your space. Yeah, not
I'm
not
just
not
kidding.
saying you're really old here, but what are the things that have changed in your industry? where maybe you found an edge. Maybe you weren't doing it in 95 and then you started, you saw an opportunity and, kind of leapfrog in, let's say 2005. Like, is there anything you can think about over the course of your career where you're like, hey, I'm glad I jumped on this and kind of became a first mover? Or and is there anything where, you can look back and you tried something, think it was going to be the next big thing in your space and it just totally failed?
Yeah. The one thing that I think we jumped on pretty early that was great at the time and has evolved is the whole marketing aspect. For us, we know, in a given territory, there's 250 bar and restaurant owners who are potential clients. So it's a finite universe. So it's tempting just to go and try and meet every single one of those. And that's a big part of what we do. But of course, you start to realize after a while that that's a lot of work. And so I remember I volunteered to write a newsletter for a company. And the only reason I did it was I saw one of the franchisees in my region do it. And he decided to retire. And I thought, well, I liked it. So I started doing it. We got to where we had a circulation of 30,000. And the key to it wasn't writing it about all the great things we do. The key was writing about, if I was a bar owner or a restaurant owner, what would I want to read about? So we entirely changed our perspective. And that didn't lead directly to a ton of clients, as you might expect. But when you walked in, they'd heard of you because they've been getting your newsletter for 2 years.
Sure.
Now that's evolved. Now today, there's sending out newsletters is not many people do it. It's more social media, more things like this, podcasts, and so that's evolved.
Sure.
But I think understanding that there's not just one marketing avenue, that you're better off doing multiple things and trying to do them well.
Yeah. Is there anything you can think about that you've tried that you're like, oh, that was just a failure or waste of time? Or
It's like
that?
a quarterback in football that you try and forget the bad things immediately. Right?
Sure.
So I bet you if you gave me 5 minutes, I'd think of a few. And I've made plenty of mistakes.
Sure.
But it's
Sure.
better to block those things out a little.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned, a few times, some of the franchisees that you've worked with, and again, you've, kind of grown the brand, yourself and as a master franchisee. What are the things that you've seen in people as they've come in that's helped them succeed and have success? And have you had any people come in where you thought, oh man, this guy's going to be a rock star, and they just didn't cut it? Like,
That's a
talk
great
to us
question.
about that.
Yeah, I've had people I would have bet the mortgage that were going to be just superstars in this business and weren't. And then I've had other people that I liked them and I wanted to give them a shot, and they ended up being amazing. There's a couple things. I keep talking about sales and marketing, but you got to get clients somehow, right? So the willingness to put the work in is huge. But the one difference I think is that, from what I've seen, almost anybody can get over one bad thing happening to them, particularly early on in a business. But I've noticed a few people, if they have two really bad things happen to them in a short succession, they just mentally check out. For example, you might lose, a bar owner is a client that owns 3 bars, maybe because you didn't put the work in. Okay, most people can recover from that. But then if 3 weeks later you lose a key employee, or in my case, I got my car broken into and my computer got stolen and all my backup data and I had to start again.
Oh, man.
That was tough, but some people can kind of bounce back from that and other people can't. And I guess the other thing is, in the corporate world, you've got a paycheck coming in. Unless you screw up, you've got a paycheck. In our business, you don't get a paycheck unless you produce for your clients. Some people thrive on that, other people don't. When I look at my friends in the corporate world, when they check out from work on Friday night, they don't think about work on Saturday and Sunday. Maybe Sunday night
Right.
they stress a little bit, but you can't get away from your own
Yeah.
business. You think about it all the time. That's the bad side. The good side, of course, is that you can spend a lot of time with your kids. You have more flexibility in your schedule. You can take vacation when you want. I mean, there's a lot of good things too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you mentioned it earlier, and obviously it's been such an important part of our world. We can't really go without talking about it, especially in your space. Like I can't imagine having been in this industry during COVID, right? you mentioned that some things have come back, some things haven't. How has the space changed in general? Like just give us some insight for those outside that don't know what's going on. What's new
In
in
the
this world right
restaurant
now?
world? Yeah. So
Yeah.
the restaurant business has always been a very, very difficult place to make money. I think the perception when you go out for dinner and you pay $14 for a cocktail is that the owner's making money hand over fist, but it's not true. Uh, the average restaurant pre-COVID made 5% profit margin. Some made a lot more, but a lot just made broke even. Post-COVID, it's even harder because it's so hard to find employees. It's just so hard, and so if you own a restaurant or a bar, you barely survived COVID, and you probably survived COVID only thanks to PPP money, the payroll protection program, and the restaurant restoration fund, whatever it was called. But coming out of COVID, your retirement plans, which were here, are now here. Mine too, by the way. And so they've got a lot of work to make up to get back on the retirement plan they might have had, or their dreams and goals as far as profitability is concerned. And it's so much harder because you can't find, particularly back of house staff who aren't making front of house tips. So it's just because
Right.
an industry that was already very, very difficult to survive in has become much more difficult to survive in. Funny thing for us is that when times are tough in the restaurant business, it's actually easier for us to get clients because most restaurateurs are saying, look, if you have a way for me to make more money, I'm interested in talking to you. In 2018, for example, we still had a way to make a lot of money, but a lot of times they'd say, oh, we're too busy to discuss it. We're doing fine. And so it's a sad state of affairs in the restaurant business right now, and hopefully getting better. But for us personally, it's easier to get clients and get in conversations.
Sure. Sure. So without giving away anything for free here, again, any big secrets, post COVID, where do you see your time or the franchisees you work with? What are the things that they're focusing on now? With their customers, is there something specific where you're like, hey, if we can solve this problem, now they can get back into the black?
That part hasn't actually changed, Galvin. That the average bar or restaurant pre-COVID in their bar was losing 20 to even 30% of their alcohol from overpouring and theft, and the metrics they looked at didn't know that, and that hasn't changed a single bit. The only thing that's changed is that they're more receptive to hearing that because every penny counts now. As far as us personally, our big challenge has been the same as a restaurant owner's big challenge, and that's finding staff. So, a lot of our guys have 6, 7 clients lined up that they can't start until they get some more employees. We've noticed really anecdotally over the last 3 months that's getting a lot better. Thank goodness. Both in the restaurant
Sure.
space and in our space.
Sure. Sure. So, and before we run out of time, I do want to ask you, tell us a little bit about both sides of your business, right? So you have the franchise piece of it, and then obviously the client facing piece. Talk to us about the value proposition and the key points on the franchise space, and then if you can, then talk to us about how that translates to adding value for
Yeah,
your
great question.
customers.
So our founder made a decision right at the very beginning that he wanted the people supporting our franchisees to also be franchisees. So almost everybody in my position wears 2 hats. They run their own franchise business and they sell and support a new franchisee. And the advantage there, of course, is you feel their pain and they can learn from your mistakes, probably more than anything.
Right.
So the value proposition for a franchisee is that you can help these bar owners make at least $1,000 more every week, sometimes a lot more than that, and in return you take a fee of roughly $300 depending on the size of the bar and the part of the country. So you don't need too many clients to make a good living, and if you want to hire employees and really grow it, there's lots of demand out there, and you can make a very, very good living. And it's a home-based business, so the overhead's low. As I said, my kids, they're 16 and 17 and 19 now. I saw a lot of them growing up, which was great. Now they want to see less of me.
Absolutely.
And so I guess that's the value proposition. To the bar owner, they make a lot more money. and they don't have to worry about inventory anymore. We do it for them. And to the franchisee, I always distrusted businesses, Calvin, that sounded too good to be true. And this one is not too good to be true. You work hard for your clients, but it's win-win, I think, as much as the cliche as that might sound.
Sure. For, if someone's interested in this space, they're the young guy making a ton of money in the industry and looking for some reason to go live in their parents' basement, right? What would you tell that person that's looking to come in as a franchisee? What are the things they need to consider? What are the strengths they need to have, and what do they need to be prepared for early on?
I think a lot of things I talked about earlier. The stress at the beginning is big. You have to have the perseverance to fight through some challenges, for sure. It's probably true of any business, not ours in particular. And I think the one thing that I would say above all is have the mindset that you don't need to extract every penny from your client to make some maximized profit. That my attitude was always, if I thought it would really help our client if I swept the parking lot, I would have swept the parking lot. Like, really put all the energy out there for them, and the effort and the care and attention, and it'll come back to you in referrals and loyal clients. And sometimes that's hard to do because you think, gosh, I've got to do all this and they're not going to pay me for it. But I guess the bottom line, think long term. That's really a big part of it, right?
Sure. And then on the other side, and for the the end user, the actual the bar owner, restaurant owner, whoever it is, what does that ideal engagement look like for you guys? And does it have to be a restaurant that's been around 10 years making $3 million, or can it be a guy who's 6 months in and just underwater?
Most of our clients are independent bar and restaurant owners. we have a few chain accounts, but most of them are Joe restaurant owner and or Jane restaurant owner. I think this sounds self-serving, but if they ever meet any of our team, just try it for 3 weeks. At the end of the 3 weeks, you'll easily be able to see if the ROI is there. And there won't be any question about it. Either we can make you money or we can't. In 30-something years, I've probably only seen, less than 5 restaurants or bars that we didn't make plenty of money for. So
sure.
Just take the meeting. That's what I would say.
Yeah, that's good. And so once that meeting happens, again, I'm super ignorant to this space, and I'm a bar owner. Actually, my sister and brother-in-law, they own 2 bars, a craft beer bar and a craft cocktail bar, right? So if they were going to come and engage with you what would that look like? What is the requirement on their side? And is it something where they've, you mentioned 3 weeks, like it's a short-term commitment, not something they've got to sign like a 2-year contract?
Right, exactly. So typically we'll come in, we'll do 3 inventories for them early in the morning before anybody's there. None of their staff knows we're coming in, so they don't have to worry about what if we bring them in, doesn't work out. And we, as I mentioned earlier, we're weighing all the open bottles, we're weighing all the kegs, and we're counting all the full product. And we do it with an app and a barcode scanner. So when we weigh the bottle, we know to within a 30th of an ounce what's in that bottle. We come back a week later, and here's the key. We know what's used out of the bottle. We match it up to their POS system, to what was sold out of that bottle. So if there's 100 ounces of Jack Daniels used, but only 80 ounces rung up, that tells you something. Typically, after the 3 weeks, if they want to continue, the owner would call a staff meeting. All the bartenders would come in. We'd generally be there. We'd explain our role. If you've ever watched Bar Rescue, which is a pretty interesting show, it's the same concept in that we're trying to hold people accountable without all the yelling and screaming, throwing bottles around. In fact, we've been on that show many times. So at the bartender meeting, we share the information, and really, it's about letting everybody behind the bar know that you're responsible and accountable for pouring right and ringing up the drinks. That's it. And the message we send is, nobody cares about what happened in the past, even though there's these huge losses on our report. All we care about is what happens going forward. And generally, if the bar team knows that we're in there weighing and counting the bottles every week, that those losses are going to disappear and stay disappeared. And so, the owner pays us, say, $300 a week, and they make $1,200 a week. So the ROI is there for them too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And besides, continuing with the Sandler sales program, if you and I get the opportunity to talk this time next year, what are the things that you will have wanted to accomplish in your business and then also in your
Yeah,
personal
I'll take
life?
the personal life first. My 7-year-old daughter joined a gym, and she's dragging me there a couple times a week, so that's kind of nice. I'm way older than you,
Yeah,
but as you get older, you got to start thinking about those kind of things. So hopefully, I got my sleeves rolled up like you next
sure.
time, and my biceps showing.
No, absolutely.
Professionally, one thing I'm not like. I think this is true of everybody. You tend to spend the time on the things that you enjoy doing, and for me, that's analyzing these reports, working with bar owners, making them more money. And you tend not to do the things that maybe you don't enjoy as much. And I need to do more of those things, which are identifying where I can spend my day making money from my company instead of doing things I'm comfortable doing. I think that's a constant struggle. And so I hope we talk again, or I meet you out for a drink somewhere that I can tell you I'm making progress.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we all struggle with that end, and it's a good reminder that, hey, just because you're good at something and you enjoy it doesn't mean it's the best thing for your business at
Exactly.
that
Well
time,
said.
right? It's a tough thing. Well, Ian, it's been a pleasure, man. Thanks so much for giving us some of your time today. Again, hope we get to talk again soon. For anyone that's taking the time to listen to Ian's story and conversation, thank you so much. Hope you join us next time. And to wrap us up, what we will ask you to do is give us a elevator pitch for any part of your business.
Okay, let's talk about joining our team, because coming out of COVID, we've got some great open areas that we have clients in that we need some franchisees in those areas. So no hard sell. As I said earlier, it's all about helping you discover whether this might be a good fit for you. If you're a bar manager and you're sick of closing at 3 a.m, you definitely need to talk to us.
And Ian, where's the best place to find you at?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Ian Foster, or you can email me at foster@sculpturehospitality.com.
Awesome.
Thank you, Cal.
Thanks again, Ian.
Appreciate it.